Welcome back to CEO Money. It's Michael Yorba and Mervyn Price. All right, our next guest today is Peter Colella, Chairman and CEO of the Colmen Group. Peter, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Michael.
All right, my pleasure. All right, Peter, let me back up a minute and you give our audience some background. You've been in the investment industry for quite a while. Give us some background on you, what the Colmen Group does, and then Mervyn and I'll dive right into these questions we have stacked up for you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Michael. Number one, the Colmen Group has been in business for 36 years. We have three divisions. We have an M&A division, which is run out of our Pennsylvania office. We have a division that helps companies that are struggling financially, and we have a division that raises capital for companies.
Okay. Let's get into the first of the topics, restructuring. There's a lot of elbow room on this one, because you can go anywhere with this, but bring it to forefront what the Colmen Group does on the restructuring front. And if you've got a story that ties in, please, by all means, bring it up.
Well, number one, Michael, we're a little different in that when we get involved in a project, it's generally because they're in trouble, but we evaluate to see if it is in fact fixable. Unfortunately, a lot of them that come to us are, as I like to say, too far gone. They can't be fixed. We're operators. We're not financial people in that division. They're strictly operating personnel. They'll evaluate a situation to see if a company has the legs to be fixed. And generally what they look at is they look at the product. And as long as the product still has market acceptability, there's a high probability it can be fixed. If you're making buggy whips, we can't help you. But generally speaking, a company gets in trouble because they made some bad decisions, and it's very difficult to change those decisions. So we come in and look at it with a fresh face and see how we can help it. And the big difference between our firm and a lot of other firms is we get a significant equity stake on the increase in value. And that's where we make the money for both the company and for the firm, is that we share with the owners or the board of directors in the upside.
Peter, you say when you go to a company, if the product is savable but the company is in dire straits, what you're actually indicating is the management's no good. Because the only difference between a successful company and a bad company is the operational system of management that drives it. So are you saying that a lot of these companies are poorly managed?
Well, I don't use the word poorly managed. It's very difficult for especially an entrepreneur to reverse courses when he's made a decision. But yes, there has to be change in management. Generally speaking, we have to control the operation, not the checkbook, but we control the operation. We just ask the manager, the owner of the company, to stay on as chairman of the board or whatever, but somebody from the Colmen Group in there running it has complete control of the operations. Public companies, we've run a couple of public companies. There we sometimes have to change the board around because the board has let the existing management get into that situation. But yes, generally speaking, not generally speaking, in all cases, we go in as the operating executive. We control the operations, not the checkbook.
Well, let's move on to something else that you do. The Colmen Group are renowned in a kind of boutique way for finding very unusual financing options for a variety of companies. Tell us a bit more about that, please.
Okay. Well, number one, when a company needs financing, there's a couple of different reasons why. First, if they're with a financial institution and the financial institution asks them to leave, you have to look at why they're being asked to leave. Let's take a very easy case. They're a small company with a big bank, and the big banks are getting to a point where they just can't service small customers anymor. So they'll ask the company to leave. That's easy. You put together a document to go to a small commercial bank, local banks, and there'll be an easy credit to transfer over. If the company is in trouble, then the bank says we're not happy, then you have to look at different alternatives. Then you look at different sources of financing. There is additional senior financing. There's hard money lenders. They'll look at pure asset values, and they'll lend on that. They're very expensive, but they're out there. That's the lender of last resort. We look at them. There's junior financing. There's mezzanine financing, which is strictly cash flow. And then there's equity, if you need to bring in equity to help. So there's different types of financings depending upon the different type of need. let's take another example, a real estate loan. We've done a number of real estate financings where the existing financial institution was not happy with the credit. There can be a couple of reasons why. The first is perhaps the particular lending institution is at their max for a particular type of loan, say for condos or for apartments or for hotels, so forth. They've reached their max, so they start culling out some of the ones that are marginal. They're easy to find another financial institution that'll take that. The other is if they're out of covenant, then sometimes the bank will say, find a new lender. Then you have to struggle a little more and dig a little harder. But there are lenders out there that'll lend in those situations. So it depends upon what type of financing, what the circumstances are. That's what comes into play when you're looking for financing.
Talk to me about either making it or buying it in order to grow my company. You've got a lot of experience in there.
Yeah. When a company wants to expand, they have two choices. They either expand through internal expansion, and that means figuring out how they're going to cut more customers, gain more volume, take business away from their competitors. What they have to look at and evaluate is, do they have the management infrastructure in place to do that? Do they have the personnel in place to do that? Do they have the financial resources in place to do that? They got to evaluate that versus saying, well, let's go make an acquisition and gain market share by doing that. What that buys them is two things. It buys them management and it buys them customer base. So it's a flip of a coin, which is the best way to do it. But the biggest single hurdle that a company has to overcome is, do they have the management in place to sustain themselves as they continue to grow?
When you're looking at a company and evaluating whether you wanted to be involved with them, and merger, acquisition, capital formation, the myriad of things in your toolbox, what are some of the key things you're looking for? Management, product, so on.
Well, management is always number one. I always say, if I have a mediocre product and an excellent management team, I'll take that any day over an excellent product and mediocre management team. So the first thing I look at is management. If the management is strong, if they have experience, if they know what they do, if they've done it before, that's always a very positive sign. The next thing is the product or the service they're going after. Is there a need for it? Is there a saturation in the market? So you'll look at all those different things and say, well, can if they're looking to raise capital or if they're looking to expand, or whatever they're looking to do, what is their degree of success based on all the factors? But again, I emphasize the number one factor is always the management team.
What do you see as a key weakness on management team? One of the tip-offs that they may look good now, but down the road it's not going to end so well. There's a couple of things. Reluctance to change. I did it this way yesterday. I'm going to continue to do it this way tomorrow. You can't do that. Sometimes they just can't see the forest for the trees. It doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they're entrenched in a certain way of doing things, and it's very difficult to change. That's why a fresh face coming in will help them turn the corner, shall we say. Right. Everybody is always looking to improve the performance of their company. And there's some key attributes to making that occur. In your opinion, where would you start with that?
Hire the right people. Hire people that are better than you. They'll make you look good, and they'll help you to be successful. And that's easy if you're an entrepreneur. It's very difficult if you're in the corporate world, because everybody's always looking over their shoulder about their job. But I tell entrepreneurs all the time, and I tell boards of directors all the time, hire people that are better than you. They're going to make you look good.
We've got about 3 minutes left, maybe about 2 minutes left. Okay. Merv's got another couple of questions for you.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Peter, as you know, you and I come out of the same industry, and we've spent a lot of similar times together. One of the advocacies of years ago, and I don't know if it still goes on, is people like us, when we move into a company that's underperforming, we tend to go in there with body bags and slash through the staff. That was never my approach. But what is your approach if they are top-heavy in personnel?
You know what, Merv, I haven't found a company that's been top-heavy in personnel in the last 10 to 12 years. 20 years ago, yes, but Not anymore. And the first thing we try and do is we go in and we tell everybody, we're not Chainsaw Al Dunlap. We're not going to just start cutting. We're going to evaluate. We're all on the same team. We're all aiming for the same direction. We're all going to work together. Do we have to change people around? Eventually, sometimes we do. But by the time it gets to that point, the other management team, the other people in the management team are saying, you know what? They really weren't carrying their weight. They really should go. We haven't gone in and slashed managements and slashed teams in 10, 12 years. It's just they're not overstaffed anymore. They used to be, but not anymore. Generally, the CEO has to step aside. Again, he can be whatever he wants to call himself, but we have to control the operations. But we haven't gone in and slashed and burned in years. The companies just aren't fat staffed anymore.
Peter, what you're saying is American business is actually improving.
Yeah, it is. I think it is. I think people are getting smarter. There's always going to be companies in trouble for numerous reasons. I mean, they make some bad decisions. The market turns on them. They lose a big customer. One of the big things that entrepreneurs especially don't look at is what I call the Walmart syndrome. Great, I have Walmart as a client. The bad news is I have a Walmart as a client. That used to be Sears, but Sears is not going to be around very much longer. But if you put too many eggs in one basket, all of a sudden that basket controls you.
Peter, we're going to have to end on that. Thank you so much for being our guest.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Peter Colella, Chairman, CEO of the Colmen Group, colmengroup.com. We'll be right back on the other side of this break with Ron Russo, CEO and Social Equity Officer, GLX Inc. We'll be right back.